and Kyrie stay together in Brooklyn? What if that happened?
They have a legitimate chance to win the East. Let me say that again for the people in the back. They have a legitimate chance to win the East. Hey, Brooklyn, Greeny, you heard me say this also before. Don't panic. I feel like when James Harden quit on the team, they panicked and moved him. I would have had all three of those guys play at least one playoff series together. Since that didn't happen, you moved him for Ben Simmons. I got to ask a second question, Zach. Get low. Get low. How did he pass a physical? How did Ben Simmons pass a physical? But with that being said, KD just saw the Golden State Warriors win the championship. He's going to be as motivated as any player in the league to come back this year and be dominant. Don't rush Brooklyn. You still have KD for 4 more years.
The next stop would be the potential of Miami. If KD winds up in Miami, and Nick Friedel has been singing about that ever since I started having him on a couple of weeks ago, Jay, if he finds himself down there, what could happen then?
The league is in trouble because the greatness of KD now gets elevated with the best coach in the NBA other than, I'm going to give props to Coach Pop. I want to give props to Coach Kerr. But beyond those two guys, I feel like the best coaches are Eric Spoelstra and Tyronn Lue. So to put KD with that group of leadership, and now all of a sudden, the hunger that he has for a franchise that has won championships before he got there in the Miami Heat, I think this would be a great opportunity for him to further his career.
All right, and then finally, let's go to what I think would be like the NBA's version of DEFCON 5. What if he winds up, or one, whatever the big one is, what if KD winds up with Steph Curry back in Golden State? Then what?
KD's going to get a lot of slander. That's what's going to happen. And the one thing about the Golden State Warriors, it was great to see them win a championship before he arrived. It was awesome to see them win 2 when he got there. But things changed in this relationship, Greeny, when they won without him. And if he goes back to the Golden State Warriors, everybody's going to look at that as a boost to the legacy of Steph Curry, not to the boost to the legacy of Kevin Durant.
I think that's right. Speaking of the Warriors, by the way, I want you guys to hear what the team's owner, Joe Lacob, had to say about Steph Curry. This was on the Point Forward podcast.
I think he's got a number of years to go.
Yes.
And we were right. We did. We won. I mean, amazingly. And I think we're going to be, hopefully better next year. These young guys will be better.
Yep.
Steph's still got it. I don't see him going off. I'm sorry to say for the rest of the league, I don't see him getting any worse.
Yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, he's aging like wine. It's crazy.
He is.
Yeah.
The guy is so well conditioned. It's unbelievable.
So it does bring up an interesting question. I mean, Jalen, you and I were sitting there, for all of that run as they win a championship. Should they be better next year? Should they just keep this group together with all these young players and not even be thinking about making some kind of big deal like that?
Absolutely. And here's why. Klay Thompson's going to be better. Remember, he had 2 consecutive years where he dealt with injuries. So he's just going to be a better player. But what they did is something that the Lakers could never do, and that's actually be patient enough to build out a roster through the draft. Injuries allowed this Golden State Warriors dynasty to get built. When Steph was earlier in his career and he dealt with injuries, he didn't have to necessarily get paid top dollar. So therefore, they built out their roster and they were strength in numbers and they won championships. When Klay got injured, when KD got injured, they went to the draft. You take Poole and all of a sudden he goes to the G League and becomes a player. You draft Kuminga, he's going to get more minutes. They took Wiseman very high in the draft and he didn't even contribute this year to their playoff run. You expect all 3 of those guys to be contributors also going forward. You bring back Draymond Green. Wiggins continued to ascend and make a name for himself as he started in the All-Star game last year. The West is in trouble. I agree with their owner. The Golden State Warriors will be better next year.
Zach, Warriors better next year? Best team in the West?
I don't know if they're the best team. I think the Clippers might start a little bit ahead of them, but they're right there. And yes, they will be better. And Jalen nailed one of the big reasons why. Klay Thompson will be in year 2 coming off 2 major injuries. Look, they lost GP2. That hurts. They lost Otto Porter. That hurts. But all those young guys, that's why you get those guys. And Jalen didn't even mention Moses Moody. They are loaded with young talent. Let's see what those guys can do. They'll be better. And Steph, Joe Lacob is dead on. That guy is going to age like fine, chilled red wine.
And I heard that conversation about red wine, and I like regular red wine and sangria. I just started drinking wine when I got mature and I turned 40. But let me just say this about the Golden State Warriors. And you're right, Zach. The one thing about Steph Curry is now they get to manage his minutes during the regular season. Hey, Greeny, like LeBron is going to be up there like carrying the Lakers and playing heavy minutes to now fight for a playoff seeding. Steph Curry can be an idol a lot of times during the regular season based on the depth that they built out. So he's going to be fresher actually going into the playoffs. They get a chance to manage him.
When people ask me why I love Jalen so much, I just point to that last 30 seconds. He just described to you when he started drinking red wine, how he likes it, and then said, but let me say this about Steph Curry. That, my friends, is the essence of the great Jalen Rose. Guys, you're the best. Jalen, thank you. We'll check in later. Zach,
love you guys.
Thanks for getting up. You're the best. All right, we continue. We'll get Orlovsky back in here. He's feeling super. He will tell you the 5 quarterbacks who most desperately need to win a Super Bowl this year. But first, Orlovsky, I got the heat on you here, and this is from Hembo. Who is the all-time leader in touchdown passes among quarterbacks who never won a Super Bowl? Interesting news. A story on Yahoo Sports that the Lakers' big three, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook, recently huddled for a phone conversation to confirm their commitment to each other through what I think can be loosely described as uncertainty surrounding their circumstances, maybe more specifically described as the possibility that Westbrook could get traded pretty much any minute now. Let's dive into this and a whole lot more. The one, the only, Jalen Rose gets up with us this morning, and Zach Lowe continues with us as well. Jay, what was your, when you saw this conversation, if those 3 guys got together and said, look, let's try and figure out a way to make this thing work, what's your reaction to that?
Well, it got messy when it started to become public. A lot of times, Greeny, there are things that happen in the locker room between players, and when it's the off season, you can kind of put it in idle and deal with it once training camp starts. But when you're a high-profile franchise like the Los Angeles Lakers, you have one of the greatest players of all time is in LeBron James, and you have Russell Westbrook, and it's the master of the obvious. They can move Russell Westbrook at any moment if they get a deal that they like. They're also going to need Anthony Davis to stay healthy. But until then, you can't have LeBron James and Russell Westbrook both at a Lakers Summer League game and the entire world see them not speak. That's when it starts to go too far. And we understand that the Lakers are trying to do whatever they can to get Kyrie. But all 3 of these guys are still under contract. So you get on the phone and you just acknowledge, hey, guys, we got it kind of good. They paying us like $40 million to play basketball. And we got to be professionals here. If something happens, then we move accordingly. That's really what it's all about. But ultimately, I believe this is why you bring in Darvin Ham. The person that he's going to challenge the most is going to actually be Anthony Davis. It's one thing for him to be healthy. It's another thing for him to be dominant. And if LeBron plays the way he did last year, and AD plays like a top 10 player, the Lakers will ascend in the West.
Well, you've made that point a lot, and for the record, for those who don't know, Darvin Ham was an assistant in Milwaukee the last few years, and you and others have credited him with going a long way towards helping Giannis in his development, so there's a big piece of that. So, Zach, let's then live quickly in a world where those 3 guys do come back, and they make some of the other moves that Woj was talking about yesterday, some of the other pieces they may bring in. What's the ceiling for that team? What could they do, best case scenario?
Well, some of the pieces they could bring in are in exchange for Russell Westbrook, even Buddy Hield or Eric Gordon. So to Jalen's point, none of this matters if Anthony Davis doesn't reclaim his spot as a top 10 NBA player. If we don't see that, then all this discussion, Kyrie, Russ, whoever, it goes up in smoke. It doesn't matter. This team, as it's constructed now with this big 3, if we get that Anthony Davis, could be a solid playoff team. I don't think the Russ fit is nearly good enough for them to contend. I don't think the supporting cast beyond those 3 is quite good enough for them to contend with the very best teams in the West. So I think that's their ceiling. As long as they have Russ, AD, and LeBron and this supporting cast, this team is a non-contender. And to me, that's not acceptable if I have LeBron James on my team at age 37.
I think that's fair. All right, Jalen, let's switch topics here.